Welcome in, everybody. You are listening to SiriusXM NBA Radio. My name is David Shepard. We are joined by an ESPN great. She does a wonderful job covering every aspect of basketball on ESPN. Her name is Andraya Carter. You know the name, you know the voice, you know the face. And she is a part of Reese's, which is bringing together basketball trailblazers. And it's a closed-door bracket summit today on March 17th. And they will build and share their men's and women's tournaments brackets and encourage fans to also do so and join as those picks inevitably, unfortunately, fall short. Maybe not for the experts, though. Andraya, great to have you. And tell us about your involvement in Reese's when it comes to these March Madness brackets.
Thank you for having me. It's been a great day building brackets. There was a lot of trash talk involved, some motivational speeches for our squads, a
Right.
lot of laughter, we wrote on the whiteboard. We enjoyed a lot of Reese's as we created our brackets. And the idea, just getting to chat with greats, Brianna Stewart, Richard Jefferson, Tyrese Halliburton. We had a surprise call from Gronk, so that was exciting. Him and Richard being Arizona guys, and a
Sure.
bunch of other people in the building. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and just the idea that every bracket busts. There's no perfect brackets, but this season it was exciting for us because as we created these brackets, we were thinking, okay, well, if this bracket busts, at least we could get some Reese's. And for people at home, if their bracket busts, but they're in the sweepstakes, they get Reese's and a chance to go to the men's or women's Final Four or national championship game. So, yeah, just a lot of good times and good vibes going on.
Absolutely. And speaking of good times and good vibes, Andrea Carter, somebody who I know us basketball heads know this, was one of the last recruits of the late great Pat Summitt. I know you got loyalty towards your alma mater in Tennessee. Bias aside, how do you like their chances in the first round against NC State?
Yeah, bias aside, I do like it.
Yeah,
It was a 3-point game last time those two teams played. Tennessee did hit a lot of threes. NC State had more fast break points. And to me, what I hope is a former Lady Vol, but what I'm curious about as an analyst is did what Tennessee went through at the end of the season pull them together or create a bigger gap in their team? And so, obviously going through 7 straight losses, losing 10 out of 12 games, that is something that could feel like it's too late to fix, but also with the tournament starting, it could also be like a fresh start. And the resilience that's built through hard times could be something that shows in their matchup against NC State. And something I'm very curious about in terms of what we see from Tennessee out on the floor.
absolutely. And again, we are joined by basketball analyst great Andrea Carter. She covers every single aspect of basketball. I don't know how she has enough time in the day to know everything going on in the WNBA, NBA, men's NCAA tournament, women's NCAA tournament, but you'd be the perfect person to ask this because I know you've been on record talking about the greatness of Geno Auriemma and the
Yeah.
34-0 UConn women's Huskies. Who is the favorite in your opinion to potentially knock them off in this NCAA tournament?
Oh, that's tough. I'm interested in I don't know about favorite because I do have UConn going all the way, and I feel
Right.
like so let me just start with that. But I am curious if Vanderbilt is a team that ends up getting to that matchup with Connecticut. Shea Ralph played at Connecticut. That's Vanderbilt's head coach. Shea Ralph played at Connecticut. Shea Ralph won at Connecticut. And Shea Ralph was Geno Auriemma's assistant, and went to 12 Final Fours as an assistant. And so I think if anybody knows Coach Auriemma and UConn and what they're running and what they're doing, it would be Shea Ralph. So I'm very interested in that. You also have, in my mind, the top 2 candidates for Player of the Year, and Sarah Strong and Michaela Blakes, who plays for Vanderbilt. Michaela Blakes is averaging 27 points per game. That average went up in SEC play, which is impressive considering how difficult of a conference the SEC is, and went up to 30 points per game. So, when you have a superstar player like that that can put a team on her back, I'd be very interested in Vanderbilt UConn, the potential of that matchup. Also, further down the line, if UConn does continue but sees South Carolina in the Final Four, Don Staley and the Gamecocks, they've certainly been there before. They lost to Connecticut in the national championship game, so there'll be some extra motivation. And this season, I think South Carolina and Vanderbilt, really anybody facing UConn, can have the "we have nothing to lose" mentality and almost play with a sense of freedom because UConn is the favorite. And so I'd be curious if South Carolina or Vanderbilt played with a sense of freedom in that matchup against UConn to potentially knock off the Huskies.
Right. And again, we are joined by Andrea Carter, does a wonderful job covering every single aspect of basketball for ESPN. You're a perfect person to ask this question to. I think it is a mistake that Dawn Staley and Becky Hammon have not been head coaches, either on the men's side in college basketball or in the NBA. Who do you believe is going? Because I believe it's a matter of when, not if, and I believe it's sooner rather than later, Andrea. Who do you believe is going to be that first women's head coach in the NBA?
Man, wow. I mean, there's a few. You mentioned Dawn Staley. She's been very open about, the Knicks position
Sure.
and interviewing for that at one point. And, those are two, top coaches that I would be very interested in, whether or not they end up getting an opportunity on the men's side. Niele Ivey is one that I have my eye on at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's head coach, if that would be an opportunity she would be interested in. So there are a few when I think about, yeah, those would probably be my top three. Obviously, Kara Lawson had experience with the Boston Celtics. She's now doing a great job at Duke. So when I think about some crossover there, Lindsay Gottlieb had some experience in the NBA, now at USC. And so I think those are off the top of my head some of the first names that come to mind for potentially being the first to lead a men's team. I'm trying to think, Lindsey Harding, while she wasn't a coach on the women's side, she's coaching in the G League, if I remember correctly, and she was an outstanding player herself. So we could see her at some point leading an NBA or men's college basketball team. Who knows?
Absolutely. And again, we are joined by ESPN basketball analyst Andrea Carter. She's doing a wonderful job representing Reese's. And again, had a wonderful day alongside Richard Jefferson, Breanna Stewart, Tyrese Halliburton, and a cameo made by Rob Gronkowski, somebody who's many people's MVP for the tight end position. Andrea, you cover all aspects of basketball. So far, who's your MVP in 2025, 2026 when it comes to the NBA?
Wow. When it comes to the NBA, honestly, I try to leave my NBA analysis for April.
Got you.
So
Got you.
I need to, once I watch the guys and once I get through men's and women's college basketball and April
Right.
hits, then I
Right.
turn my attention to the NBA. So I'm split between a few different players. So before I give an answer, I'll give a little more analysis and thought and breakdowns into those guys in April who I have my eye on. Obviously, Wemby's having a phenomenal season.
Sure.
Shea, Jokic, I know those three are extremely, just extremely talented, and they've just put on absolute shows all season long. But in deciding between those three, for me, I'm still undecided there. But once we get through men's and women's tournaments and this amazing opportunity from Reese's, then I'll turn
Right.
my attention to the NBA.
Absolutely, Andre. We got one more for you on SiriusXM NBA Radio. You've mentioned the late great Pat Summitt. You've talked about Geno Auriemma at great length, the 12 national championships, the 24 Final Fours, which is video game-esque. Phil Jackson has 11 NBA titles. Coach K has 5 titles in the modern game. Red Auerbach has obviously 9 going back to the 50s and 60s. You've studied every aspect of basketball. You are a perfect person to ask. I'm going to put you on the spot with this last question. Who's the greatest coach of all time in the history of basketball?
Yeah, I've said this before. I think I was it last year we were debating this on
Yeah.
first take. I can't remember, but to me, it would be Geno.
Yep.
Like you're
Wow.
talking about a coach that coached in multiple different decades, like 4 different decades of coaching. And to me, when you can achieve that level of excellence and championships across decades, like the game changes, recruiting changes, there's NIL is involved now, the transfer portal, like there have been so many changes to this game, and you've seen some coaches walk away from the game due to certain changes. And to me, yeah, for the some of the best players in the game to continue to want to go play for Geno Auriemma and represent UConn and to win at the highest level, that is, to me, it's such a level of greatness. And what I think is interesting and what I do try to consider is, at the college level, you get to pick your players. I do have a lot of respect for the coaches that have a sustained level of excellence at the professional level, where sometimes the roster isn't always in their control, and who is, those considering all those aspects, which I respect. But I would still go with Geno.
That's coming from a former great Tennessee Vol. So that's saying something right there. Andraya Carter, honor to have you on SiriusXM NBA Radio. Keep killing it with all the coverage you're giving to the NBA, the WNBA, college basketball, both on the men's and women's side. You're a star in the media, and just continued success. And it's great talking hoops with you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.